Good morning, everyone, and welcome back for this new week. Let's start with a recap of what has happened and what awaits us in this month of June that has just begun. In short, over the weekend there were a few skirmishes always on the tariff front, on the for steel, also, declarations towards Europe and therefore the euro, MMH, with increases in tariffs also for Europe and to this obviously the response from the EU was not long in coming. They are preparing some countermeasures and we'll see what happens next. But the market has gained a little experience with these things, so the reactions to this news are still there, but always with less strength. As we were saying, June has started. June is an important month for several reasons. It's the end of the first half of the year, so that's very significant. Then, it's also an important month in terms of macroeconomic events because basically all the central banks, the Fed, the ECB, the Bank of England, the Bank of Japan, are meeting this month. So, all of them are involved. There's also the options expiration around the 20th, I believe, so it's definitely an important month. In addition, if we add to this the fact that we're approaching the end of stock buybacks, because at the beginning of July, earnings season starts again, which as always will kick off with the financials, so all of this could definitely lead, in my opinion, to a weakening of the indexes. We're already starting to see this in recent days if we look at the charts. On the daily charts, we can see reversal candles forming, and there are also indecision candles and inverted doji candles appearing. So, there's a bit of uncertainty at the moment. If this indecision is broken, I expect a decent pullback in the market. We'll see if this scenario actually plays out, but as always, we have to navigate as we go. Perfect. With this brief initial recap out of the way, let's now look at things from an operational perspective. What we can expect today, what might be in store for us today. Let's start with the Nasdaq. At the moment, the Nasdaq has already dipped a bit since Friday's close, about 100 or 200 points, and unless it manages to recover a little now with the opening of the European markets, we're already pretty much in a downward scenario. I mean, if we look at it on a 1-hour chart, we can see that the scenario is already taking shape. In fact, we might even be able to draw a head and shoulders pattern if this shoulder were a bit higher. But in any case, in my opinion, the situation is trending downward. Right now, I see a bit more weakness, in the upper part, so there isn't much strength when the price moves to the top of these ranges, and in my opinion, this is signaling some weakness in the markets. We'll see if this develops further or if new players enter the market who could definitely turn the situation around. On the downside, obviously for the Nasdaq, we need to keep an eye on the 21,000 area. That's definitely the most important area to watch for a potential drop, which more or less matches the lows recorded on Friday, around 21,080 to 21,070. So let's keep monitoring that area. On the upside, we could also see a return into the range, with a breakout and then a move back into the 2.70, 2.80 area, which could then push prices to test the upper part of this range again. However, here we could also see another rejection below the BC3 levels, which would then send prices down again. We'll see which scenarios actually play out. Let's move on to ES. ES is in a similar situation. Here too, we're seeing a nice trading range, even though we're also operating in the lower part of this trading range. We're obviously keeping an eye on the downside at 58.50 and 58.40, which are definitely lows to watch. On the upside, of course, we're monitoring these BC3 levels, so the area around 59.15 is the zone to watch for any potential upward moves. Look at how many times, right here in this area, specifically at 59.15, it was rejected on Friday, and now it's working around that level again. So, it's likely we'll see another test of this area, but honestly, the chances of it breaking through are starting to dwindle. Let's see how things develop. Let's move on to the other two American futures. Of course, here they are. Perfect. This is the Dow Jones, which at the moment has basically bounced off or slightly broken through 42,000. So the area of the lows is absolutely clear. 42th, 41.9, 42,000 is the area to keep an eye on. On the upside, instead, we're watching 42.3 here with this high here, 42.4. Basically, that's the area to keep an eye on. So it's a nice range that maybe you can work with in the morning, if, there are any movements. Let's move on to the Russell, which I consider my canary in the coal mine. Right now, it's sitting exactly on the levels we pointed out on Friday in the daily analysis, around 2040, 2050, because, it's an important level, tested many times. So, a break below this level would could definitely, lead prices to retest the area around 1,980, 2,000. On the upside, of course, we're keeping an eye on 2077, 2080. Let's move on to oil. Here it is, which had a nice surge this morning. Well, this morning, at the market open, during the regular trading hours, it pushed the price from 61.15, and now it's hovering around 63, so it's right up against the expected high area for today, maybe just barely touched it. It's working on it with a bullish attitude. Basically, we've reached this high again, an area that's been rejected several times, so let's keep an eye on this level here, which matches up with this whole area of highs, so 63.30, 63.50, that's the area. It's the area that needs to be broken to the upside. Obviously, if it gets rejected downward here again, would easily expect a test of the 61.70 to 62 area. Let's move on to gold. Here it is, which also had a nice surge, maybe partly as a result of these renewed tensions on the tariff front, and basically it made a strong upward move, breaking through those highs we pointed out last Friday in the morning briefing, because the 280, the resistance, had held up really well. The support level, which had held up really well. Then, basically, once the price went back above it, it just made a quick, not even a test. It didn't even get to test the 382.80 level. It reached around 382.93. It paused there before taking off again this morning, basically at the opening of today's session. So, basically, it's a similar situation. Right now it's working, almost at the highs here, the highs for this period. So, let's obviously keep an eye right now on the high that was reached last night, because at the moment the market is fluctuating a bit. So let's watch this area here, since it could go on to test this higher zone again and, if it breaks through, then it has room to go up further. On the downside, of course, we want to, or we can, keep an eye on the 3.3 to 3.60 area, which is definitely, the main support, in this zone. SPX obviously, this is a study that I'll present to you later, which will be part of for options. It's something that will help you, and for now, of course, it will only be for SPX. Let me just remove it for a second. Here it is, SPX, perfect. So, it closed above 5,900, but given how ES is moving right now, it should open around. If the ES price stays like this, it should open somewhere around 5,800, 5,890, 5,885, probably. We'll see if, but I think it's, 5,870, 5,875 should be the opening for SPX. That's the projection this is giving me right now. If it opens here, it means that we're basically back in this range, which could obviously go on to retest the area of, well, this range from the past few days could go on to retest the lower part around 5,840, and that's where things get dangerous, because breaking this level could trigger much stronger downward moves, since there are option levels where market makers would have to start selling as the market keeps dropping, so in my opinion, that would amplify the move. We'll see if this is how things open anyway. Right now, it's 11:30 in the morning in Italy, and there are still a few hours left before the market opens. As for Bitcoin, it pulled back quite a bit over the weekend. Actually, it started dropping on Friday and landed right in the area we've always pointed out, that 102 to 103 zone. Well, it's trying to make a little bounce, but to me it looks like a dead cat bounce, basically, the one that happened last night. So now it's even formed a double top, well, a relative one, for this period. If we just look at today's opening, it made this double top and then came back down. Right now, it's sitting right at the pivot level of this double top, so around 104.75, 104.65. If it breaks, it would easily bring prices back down to retest the lows. On the upside, obviously, if this level holds, I'd expect another test, maybe, and then a breakout to the upside. Let's see which of these two scenarios ends up playing out. Perfect. With that, we've reached the end of this daily analysis. As always, I invite you to leave a like on the video, follow me on social media, and we'll catch up later in the chat. Thanks everyone for your attention.